Now, we want to welcome our viewers in Korea and all around the world, coming to you live from our Seoul studio. I'm Moon Ga-young Jennifer, and this is Arirang News special coverage of the Leaders' Dialogue and closing ceremony of the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. Now, under the theme of inclusive green recovery towards carbon neutrality, 60 world leaders, including British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, those of P4G partner countries, as well as leaders of international organizations such as the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency and the Director ad interim of Green Climate Fund's private sector facility, have been and are gathering at this moment at the virtual venue here in Seoul for the two-day 2021 Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals 2030 Seoul Summit. Now, the two-day P4G Summit comes to a close tonight, following with a leaders dialogue presided by President Moon Jae-in, with 12 leaders participating in a real-time discussion on carbon neutrality through inclusive green recovery. The outcome of this summit will be documented and adopted as a Seoul Declaration, and the two-day P4G Seoul Summit will come to a close with a closing ceremony. So in less than 10 minutes from now, we will be bringing you a live coverage of the Leaders' Dialogue at the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit, which will be followed by the adoption of the Seoul Declaration and then closing ceremony at the summit venue in downtown Seoul. But to provide us some perspective and expertise on the issue of inclusive green recovery from COVID-19, international community's efforts to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and to strengthen climate action and facilitate public-private partnership tackling climate change overall, I have in the studio with me Professor Chung Seo-young, Director of Center for Global Climate and Marine Governance at Korea University. Professor Chung, it's great to have you here with us on this very special occasion.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Now, I'm sure you have been watching South Korea prepare for this P4G summit, which is South Korea's very first multilateral summit on climate, on environmental issues. Prepare for this summit, leading up to this summit. What is your overall take on this preparation efforts and the summit for the last 2 days?
Well, South Korea, as you just said, just tries to host the first summit-level meeting in Seoul in the field of the climate change. Even if we used to have some other summit meetings, such as the G20 meeting and nuclear security summit meeting. But considering the importance of the climate change issues at this time in the world, that South Korea's efforts to host this and bringing all the attention from the world to Korea was very significant. And then I know that for the last more than 1 year, due to the COVID-19, then South Korean government made its every effort to make this event very successful under its leadership.
Right, but it was originally planned for last year, but it had to be postponed due to COVID-19. What kind of an impact does COVID-19 have on climate change and other environmental factors?
Well, there are two different aspects in terms of the impact of the COVID-19 in climate area. First is that, the relationship between climate and COVID-19 as a matter of the cause for the COVID-19. Unless you address the climate change, actually you cannot resolve the problem of the COVID-19 and other diseases that we might encounter in the future. At the same time, because of the COVID-19, the countries suffered from the losing jobs and then the degrading their conditions. And in order to make all these things better than before, then recovery plans has been put in place in the context of putting the low carbon development and the technologies and finance resources to boost all the economies. And thereby, we achieved not only addressing the climate change, also solving the COVID-19 threats.
Now, so this year, the P4G Summit has been focused mostly on inclusive green recovery towards carbon neutrality. Now, I want to focus on two different aspects of this. The P4G Summit, for one, this is a very unique platform where the summit organizers try to link or bridge the public sector, the governments, as well as business leaders and civil societies in tackling climate change. Now, why is such a platform necessary?
Well, as we usually think that climate change should be addressed by government through the regulations, but actually what we have achieved through the Paris Agreement is about the boosting economy and then promoting the investments in the commercialized green technologies, thereby creating jobs and others. So therefore, ultimately, those who owns the technologies are private sectors, as you may know, and then who has more financial resources to invest, most of them actually come from the private sector. So therefore, it is very necessary for Indonesian society to find a way of how to get this public sector, in other words, government and private sector, in other words, business and then including civil society, work together, not necessarily in terms of asking them to do something, but making decisions together for the better life.
And the second layer of this, second factor that makes this P4G Seoul Summit unique is the fact that it comes amid the pandemic, and thus the theme, inclusive green recovery towards carbon neutrality. What is it about this inclusive green recovery do we need to do or make extra efforts for carbon neutrality?
Well, there is a common theme that we can refer to in this context. That's a just transition. So even if we try to thrive for making the society better in the context of achieving the carbon neutrality, but there should be the group of people and the sectors who might lose their jobs and economic prosperity due to not only the COVID-19, also this transition process. Therefore, we need to make sure that no one will be left behind. So therefore, in the context of the Korean Green New Deal policy, there are a lot of emphasis on the inclusiveness. Also, this approach can be applied to Indonesian society as well by providing a lot of assistance to developing countries who are more in need to address all these challenges together.
Right. Now, this P4G Seoul Summit comes right after President Joe Biden's climate summit in April and comes before the COP26 in November. What kind of a role could P4G Seoul Summit play?
Well, first of all, we cannot avoid saying that the climate summit meeting organized by the President Biden was extremely successful by boosting the importance of the climate change issues by one of the leading countries in the world. And then we are supposed to go to the COP, and then because of the COVID-19, there has been the postponement last year, and then we are not sure what we need to do. But between these two important meetings, then this P4G summit meeting is well situated to make some bridges, focusing on the specific issues and also bringing more attention from other summit leaders who might not have attended in the climate summit meeting by the United States. Or we can also make sure that the COP26 meeting will reflect all these current concerns that we can identify further from the P4G summit meeting.
Now, these kind of summits we have seen from previous years, there are a lot of discussions, there are a lot of talks, but at the end of the day, we rarely see concrete practical measures. Can we expect some kind of practical measures at the end of this P4G Seoul Summit and after the Seoul Declaration?
Well, there are some theories and practices that we might not be matched together all the time. In theory, of course, the P4G summit meeting, that the Seoul Declaration especially, that we will get sooner or later, actually can be a good platform to make a very concrete efforts of not only by the countries, but also the private sectors and civil society as well. That's the theory. And then what's going to happen in practice, that's another issue that we need to take a look at. And I think under the current situation of COVID-19, Korean government as the host actually to make its every effort to bring all these tangible outcomes to the table on the P4G summit meeting. Of course, there are some unfortunate limitations to do so, not only because of COVID-19, also the nature of this kind of the political process. It doesn't focus on necessarily on the technical issues, and even if we are hoping to do so more, and then there are some challenges. However, because of this challenge, we are not supposed to have the P4G. No, the other way goes around. P4G summit meeting still make sure that, all these players can recognize the importance of these issues in general. Based on this platform, then we can make further efforts by bringing more stakeholders onto the table to the road of achieving the carbon neutrality.
Now, many say that 2021 is the first year of the implementation of the Paris Climate Accord. What does that mean?
Well, this is the first year of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, as you just said, which means that this is what the Paris Agreement tells us is like a new constitution to deal with the climate change issues, from the issues of the cost to issues of the creating opportunities. In other words, that all the mechanisms that the Paris Agreement generate is to boost the low carbon economy by putting the technology, putting the financial resources and the building capacity for the developing countries. And then in this context, that the Paris Agreement, can open up the new opportunities for all.
Well, on that note, I think we are beginning to see the P4G Seoul Summit Leaders Dialogue start to begin at the venue in Dongdaemun Plaza in downtown Seoul. We are beginning to get the live coverage from the venue at the P4G Seoul Summit. And this is the second and final day of the P4G Seoul Summit. And you are seeing video footages starting off the second and final day of the P4G Seoul Summit 2021.
That we humans are not, after all, the only beings on the planet with personalities, with minds capable of solving problems, and above all, with emotions, feelings of happiness, sadness, fear, despair, anger, and certainly feeling pain. We now know that we're part of the animal kingdom. And yet we, the most intellectual creature to ever walk the planet, are destroying our only home. It is our only home. The sad thing is that in large part we brought it on ourselves by our absolute disrespect of animals and the natural world. Thing is that we're part of the natural world. We depend on it for food, water, for everything. But it's healthy ecosystems that we depend on. And these healthy ecosystems are comprised of the interrelated plant and animal species that make up the biodiversity of an ecosystem. I call it the tapestry of life. So there is hope, but there's hope only if we get together to take positive action. And we need to get together now.
여러분 반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you all.
존경하는 각국
Honorable
정상과
leaders of
국가기구
each
대표 여러분,
countries and leaders
전
of international
세계에서
organizations,
영상을 시청하고 계신 여러분,
and also everyone around the world who are joining us
2022
virtually.
서울
We
녹색위기
also
정상회의에
would like to
함께
welcome all of you
다시
to the
한번
2021
감사드립니다.
P4G Seoul Summit.
어제 개회식과
Yesterday we had the opening
정상연설
ceremony and we
세션을
also had the
가졌고,
leaders
오늘은
dialogue.
포용적
And
녹색
today,
회복을
under the
통한
theme of
탄소
inclusive
중립
green growth
비전
towards
실현을
carbon
의제로
neutrality,
토론 세션을
we are also
진행하고자
carrying
합니다.
out our leaders
토론이
dialogue.
끝나면
And
정상회의에
following this
참여한
session, we will
모든
also
분들의
have
기후위기
a chance
의지를 담아
for us
서울
to
선언문을
adopt the
채택하도록
Seoul
하겠습니다.
Declaration.
본격적인 토론에 앞서
And
이
ahead
회선
of the
IPCC
dialogue,
의장님의
leaders dialogue, let us
기조
now
발제를
begin
듣겠습니다.
with the IPCC's chair Lee Hwee-sung's remarks. IPCC is an international organization that lays the groundwork for us to tackle climate change.
Your Excellency President Moon, Republic of Korea, Excellencies and distinguished participants, thank you for this invitation to the P4G Summit 2021. On behalf of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, I would like to congratulate the Republic of Korea for convening the Seoul Summit for Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030. This is an opportune time for the summit, as 2021 is the first year that the implementation of the Paris Agreement takes effect. It is an opportune moment also as the summit envisions providing a forum for mobilizing multilateral efforts toward carbon neutrality and SDGs. Carbon neutrality is a science-based global goal. It is based upon the findings of the IPCC's fifth assessment report and its special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Science tells us the climate is already changing because of human activity. We are currently on a path risking serious, pervasive, and irreversible impacts. But science also shows us the pathways that can lead to a sustainable and prosperous future. We can build such a future through a step change in technology innovation in many critical areas, such as enhancing energy efficiency, making low-carbon electricity the main source for heating buildings and powering vehicles, capturing, storing, and utilizing carbon dioxide before it escapes into the atmosphere, realizing the potential of clean hydrogen across many industries, massively expanding the use of sustainable bioenergy, exploring sustainable agriculture, and building the foundation for a circular economy. And stabilizing the climate is compatible with other goals like sustainable development and eradicating poverty. Developing the industries and technologies I just mentioned will create new economic opportunities, showing that stabilizing the climate can be a source of prosperity as well as avoiding risk. But action for the future must begin now. Our last special reports show that the need and possibility for urgent action are clear. Governments are responding to these findings with new commitments, which are not yet enough to keep warming below 1.5 degrees. And we look forward to seeing the P4G Summit catalyze enhanced efforts in line with science. Science continues to advance. and the IPCC will have more knowledge to share with you in the month to come. But you already know enough to act today. Thank you.
예, 의장님 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Chairman Lee.
IPCC의
We have heard from him of the special report of IPCC about keeping the warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we are alert about this fact and we have also heard about the pathway forward. Next,
지난주
we will
P4G 녹색 미래 주간부터 진행되었던
look
15개
at
일반 세션의
the
주요
15
결과를
thematic
함께
sessions and the
보도록 하겠습니다.
results from the thematic sessions. We have 15 sessions from more than 200 people for the last 1 week, and we talked about carbon neutrality and inclusive
Welcome
green
to
growth.
the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit Green Future Week opening.
I believe that we need to decide to start negotiations on a global agreement on plastics at the resumed UNEA 5 next year. Pull the Peace Forest initiative to the level of full global recognition with support and a great success.
Nature is amazingly resilient if we give her a chance. We must get together now and each play our part.
So we urge every country to come forward with nationally determined contributions that align with net zero commitments.
We have had 243 municipal governments declare carbon neutrality by 2050. We have to voluntarily resolve this climate issue.
The public sphere includes both citizens and governments, and they must work more closely together.
Innovation policies and creating niche markets to allow the new solutions and technologies to grow.
It is the foundation of trust in this multilateral process.
I feel encouraged knowing you're all working hard for a fair and green future. You are the future. Seize it.
There were basic sessions.
Water to generate energy, to make food, and to deliver the health outcomes.
Climate change. No single business, city, or nation can take on climate change alone.
We need to transform those sustainability directions into business models for farmers.
We need to take action to combine public and solutions and finance for smart and resilient green cities.
Addressed, among others, prevention and minimization, as well as recycling and financing.
Join us through leadership by example and investment in solutions to build a more inclusive and sustainable tomorrow.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
농업, 식량,
Water,
녹색
agriculture,
기술,
and
해양,
food, green
에너지 등
technology,
여러
marine, and
분야에서
energy were some of
심도
the
있는 논의가
topics
이루어졌습니다.
under which we
특히
carried out
청년과
in-depth discussions.
시민사회,
Moreover, we
기업,
had
지자체까지
a chance to
다양한
listen to the
주체들이
civil
함께
society,
고민하고
the youth, as well as the
행동에
local
나서고
governments.
있다는
They gathered their
뜻입니다.
wisdom and also
이러한 노력이 모여
they charted on
어느
actions
기절에
that need
지구를
to
위한
be
행동으로
implemented
이어질 수
going
있을
forward.
것입니다.
And I believe that they can lead to actual
지금부터는
actions going forward.
오늘
And from now
토론 주제에
on,
대한
let us
각국
now invite
지도자의
all of the
발언을 듣는
leaders
순서입니다.
of each country
주제는
for their
세
remarks.
가지입니다.
We have three
첫째,
themes today. First,
포용적인 녹색
inclusive
회복을
green
이루기 위한
recovery
각국의 노력.
and towards
둘째,
this
2050
and
선수
especially
등립을
the
향한
national
국제사회의
efforts, and also second, the joint efforts to tackle carbon neutrality, and also third, the cooperation with the private sector to also tackle climate change. First of all, as the host of P4G South Korea, would like to brief you on our efforts so far. Your Excellencies, carbon neutrality is something that is sustainable, and it is all about making sustainable and green future. And it is something that we can only achieve when we join hands together. And this means that achieving this means should also be sustainable. And we believe that we cannot encourage the participation by the citizens and also the private sector if it's not sustainable. And we need to transition this into an opportunity to create more jobs so that we can have a consensus among each of the sectors, including the civil society and the private sector as well. To do so, the South Korean government has proposed Green New Deal as the main project, and by 2050 we aim to inject about 65 billion US dollars. And we will be leading the private sectors going forward, and our main focus is this going forward as well. And we already have achieved remarkable success and a tangible success. In Jeollanam-do Province, Sinan, which is the home to many marine biodiversity, we are seeing a cooperation, and we are also seeing 8.2 gigawatts, which is the world's largest marine power plant. And we believe that this can also contribute to sharing the income on an annual basis, and this indeed is participated by the public. And in the city of Ulsan, we are also in the middle of the sea, where we were also we are aiming to have about 6 gigawatts, which is dedicated to promoting and generating green natural gas. And we believe that this will have an going forward investment and also about 3.3 million jobs going forward. And also we believe that this is the Korean Green New Deal, which is a collaboration between the private and public sectors. The climate change has no boundaries, and this is an issue that needs to be tackled by both emerging countries and advanced countries, and the solidarity and unity among the two are very important. As the advanced countries experienced these in the past, the developing countries have no other means but to rely on fossil fuel. And for them, it is very difficult and challenging to achieve carbon neutrality. Therefore, the advanced countries need to increase the amount of assistance and share their burden. And South Korea going forward, in order to promote solidarity with the rest of the international community, we will act as a bridging country between the advanced and also developing countries. We will take part in these actions proactively, and last month we have also the special GGGI, which opened its doors in Songdo in South Korea, and we will make sure that the developing countries secure a green technology. And in the green energy field, we will also expand our ODA size and also establish new related green funds. And we will also exert our full efforts to intensify and bolster our finance for these countries.
And to lower the greenhouse gas emissions, we are going to go forward, and we are going to strengthen the efforts that we can do to do so. And the Korea-ASEAN summit that we had, we agreed that we are going to strengthen the management of the waste. And from this year onwards, from the Philippines and Indonesia, we are in collaboration to enhance the maritime waste utilization. And we urge all the international community to come on board. And the efforts Korean government is paying towards carbon neutrality, I hope that this will bring forward the international commitment towards the green government and green carbon neutrality. Next, we are going to turn to the first P4G summit country, Denmark. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Denmark and the Republic of Korea are both surrounded by sea. We are all familiar with strong winds blowing. As many Danes riding their bike to work or school every day will tell you, this does not always feel like a blessing. But over the past 30 years, we have seen that those winds have changed our country. Today, actually 50% of Denmark's electricity comes from wind and solar. Green jobs now outnumber jobs in fossils. And onshore wind is the cheapest energy source in Denmark as in most countries. Cheaper than gas and cheaper than coal. In Denmark, green transition does not happen at the expense of society. No, it drives our society forward, create jobs for thousands of people. Since the oil crisis in the 70s, Danish governments have worked closely with the private sector to explore the potential of green energy. And last year, we established 13 climate partnerships with all parts of Danish business. We are soon building the world's first energy island, entering a new era of clean energy. Partnerships are the backbone of Denmark's green journey. If we want to fight climate change, we have to work together, governments, industries, citizens across the globe. That is what we hope to pass on through P4G, climate action brought about by the right political decisions and strong partnerships between our countries and between sectors. We are now on the road to COP26. Now is the time to showcase new green solutions and scale them. Mr. President, thank you for hosting this important summit, and thank you for all you do for the climate and for your support for P4G. Denmark is proud to partner with the Republic of Korea. We have come far, and we can go even further. Let's share experiences and learn from each other, and act now for our green future together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that meaningful comments and remarks. The advanced pathway that Denmark is following, I believe that is an inspiration for other countries as well. We're now going to turn to Colombia. The President Ivan Duque Marquez and Colombia has been one of the pivotal countries that is leading the P4G summit.
Thank you so much, President Moon. It's a great honor to participate in this summit, and I want to express my gratitude to you for organizing such a special event. Also, I express my gratitude to all the heads of state and leaders that are participating this morning. Let me begin by saying that Colombia only represents 0.6% of all the CO2 emissions that are emitted every year. Nevertheless, Colombia is one of the 20 more affected countries in the world by climate change. Saying that, Colombia is making a big bet, a historical bet. We want to reach by 2030 a reduction of 51% in our CO2 emissions. And we have committed ourselves to reach by 2050 carbon neutrality. Now, the question is, how is it that we're going to get there? And this is very important because the first element that we have put before the Colombian people is energy transition. When we assumed office in August 2018, only 0.2% of the energy matrix was wind and solar, non-conventional renewables. But today, we're on the track of making the largest expansion of renewable energies in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we expect that we're going to pass from 0.2% to 40%, 14% of the energy matrix by the end of our term. Saying that, it is very important to highlight that when we assumed office, less than 50 megawatts were based on non-conventional renewables. And by August next year, we're going to be above 2,000 megawatts. That transition is also connected with another element, clean mobility. We're making a big bet on electric vehicles, and now we have the largest public transportation fleet run by electrical vehicles in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we also have today the largest cargo fleet in electric vehicles that are moving in the Colombian countryside. By that, it is also important to highlight that we have made a big bet on the circular economy. Produce, conserving, and conserve producing. Reduce, reduce, recycle has been used as a mantra in the private sector. And we have launched the Leticia Pact to fight deforestation. And we have joined the initiative of the 1 trillion trees, that by the end of our term, we're going to have 180 million trees planted in Colombia. And by the end of this year, 125 million trees. We want this to continue. And that's why we want to put this in the context of what we call nature-based solutions, that we have natural preservation contracts, and that we expect that green businesses and the concept of biodiverse cities are also embraced locally, so that this is a joint effort by all the governance in our country. Now, on the question on how can we develop more PPPs and how can the whole world collaborate on these efforts, we consider that a capital increase in the Inter-American Development Bank, and also the promotion of resources from the World Bank, and also the IMF and other multilaterals linked to green recovery and building back better after the pandemic with green conditions, it's something that must be a must. And we also expect that the contribution of the private sector accelerates. And that's why we have created fiscal incentives so that the private sector accelerates their participation. And we expect in the next weeks to have the first energy storage bid in Latin America and the Caribbean, where the private sector can also contribute to the energy transition and also to energy sustainability. That's the bet that we have, and we are committed to achieve these targets. Reduce by 51% our CO2 emissions by 2030 and reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, combining all these elements. Colombia has 6% of the Amazon basin, but that 6% represents more than 35% of our soil. We have 50% of the world high altitude ecosystems. So embracing this cause is also protecting the sustainability and the identity of our country. Thank you so much once again, President Moon, and thank you to all the participants. Colombia is highly committed to the P4G initiative, and we will continue to embrace this cause day by day, as we will do it in the COP that is going to be celebrated this year. Thank you so much.
예, 두께 대통령님 말씀 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for your remarks, President. And for the next host of P4G, it's Colombia, and I very much look forward to the hosting. And next in Europe, we turn to President Ursula von der Leyen from the European Union.
Thank you very much, President Moon. Excellencies, I'm delighted to be participating today at the P4G Summit in Seoul. Well, indeed, recovering from the pandemic, it's the right time to rethink our societies and economies. It's clear that things will never be the same, but we can influence the direction they take. We have a chance to rebuild for a greener and healthier future. And that is what the European Green Deal is about, our new growth and innovation strategy. Europe aims to be the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. We set out on this journey already in 2019. Today, many countries around the globe are in an exciting race to zero. And I was delighted that you, President Moon, announced that Korea is also aiming to be climate-neutral by 2050. Even though the finish line is 30 years away, the race starts now. The 2020s is the make or break decade. And that's why Europe has committed to reduce our emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. Our targets are now written into Europe's first ever climate law. So we are no longer discussing if, but rather how to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. Europe will be doing its part. But the reason we are here today is that we all need to do our share. At COP26, we must show that we have understood this, big or small, developing or developed. We all have to invest in a green transition and adapt to the coming changes in our climate. It is a matter of self-interest, of mutual interest, and of collective interest. And I'm encouraged by the commitments of our Korean hosts. This includes your plan for an ambitious NDC update ahead of COP26 in line with your net zero targets and your announcement of an end to overseas coal financing. It is this kind of action that can both inspire and benefit Korea's international partners. My hope for Glasgow is that we see even more nations committing to reach net zero by mid-century. And even more importantly, that we see more concrete plans for how to get there. My commission will adopt a package of legislation in July, which we call Fit for 55. It will detail out our European policies to meet our minus 55% target for 2030. Of course, we all start from different places, and we have different geographies and different finance needs. But this is also true within Europe. So we have to overcome these obstacles. On this long journey, we will all have to learn from each other. And Europe is ready to lead, and we are also always ready to share. We're ready to share our ideas and strategies on climate action. Change is never easy, but Europe has taken the decision because mankind can't wait any longer. And we have to do this together. It was wonderful to listen to Jane Goodall saying that so rightly. So the more we partner for green growth, the quicker and easier it gets for all. The next 6 months are crucial for the health and well-being of our people and our planet. Let's work together. You can count on Europe. Thank you very much, President Moon.
위원장님,
Thank you very much for your meaningful remarks. Thank you once again. And acting against climate change, we believe that the EU is taking a leading role. I thank you once again for that. And next from Vietnam, we have a Prime Minister, Pham Minh Chinh. Nice to meet you. Vietnam, especially when it comes to P4G, it is a member of P4G, and it has also initiated our initiative of 2030. And Prime Minister, please take the floor.
Your Excellency President Moon Jae-in of the Republic of Korea, distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my deep appreciation to the government of the Republic of Korea and President Moon Jae-in for hosting this summit under such a meaningful theme. On behalf of the government of Vietnam and from my own heart, I would like to extend to all of you my warmest greetings and best wishes. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is now witnessing the compounding effects at an unprecedented scale and scope arising from three major catastrophes, namely the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and natural resources depletion, not to mention the aging population in many countries. These challenges have left dire and multidimensional consequences not only for today, but also for future generations. However, the pandemic and those challenges and hardships have shown us more clearly the importance of environmental protection and harmony between human and nature, and created a momentum to push our advancement and capability. More than ever before, we must be of one mind and join hands to strike a balance between the urgent need for economic recovery and the demand for greener and more sustainable growth in the post-COVID era. This is both an objective and a pressing requirement for development of all nations. Accordingly, I'd like to make the following proposals. First, green recovery, green economy, and circular economy must be vigorously pursued at the national, regional, and global levels under the general framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. We need to alter the way of thinking, methodology, develop practical approach, and shift from passive response to harmonious, compatible, and effective combination of active response and transition towards a green economy. By so doing, we will be able to avoid disruptions that may cause shock effects. Second, green transition requires a suitable roadmap and is critical to take into account different conditions and capabilities of countries. Developed countries should continue to take the lead in realizing their emission reduction commitments. They're also expected to provide financial, technological, and institutional assistance to developing countries and severely affected nations by climate change. Third, it's imperative to develop institutions to encourage the support and engagement of all stakeholders, particularly business community and the people. It is indeed crucial to promote public-private partnership projects for green growth and establish new value chains and sectors through greening industrial and agricultural production and services. Fourth, it is essential to enhance adaptability for the regions worst hit by climate change, including the Mekong sub-region and Vietnam's Mekong Delta. The severe challenges in those regions call for the close and responsible cooperation from the international community, especially in the sustainable management and use of cross-border water resources. This will help ensure food and water resources security in the region and the world at large. Fifth, preventing and curbing COVID-19 pandemic successfully are the most urgent for growth to bounce back. The efforts of each country are of paramount importance, but effective international cooperation is indispensable. Such collaboration spans from the empathy for the emotional and material loss of others, sharing of technology, financial and medical resources, especially vaccines, facilitation of international trade and investment, to cooperation in enabling transportation and movement of people and goods between countries and avoiding disruption of global supply chain. Six, we need to uphold the spirit of unity, responsibility, and mutual respect among countries in the common interest of humanities given the current situation. We must sustain a favorable international environment and continue to promote peace, stability, and cooperation for development. This will benefit our economic recovery and international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, as for Vietnam, Vietnam is determined to pursue its dual goal despite numerous challenges. This means curbing the pandemic effectively while fostering fast and sustainable socio-economic recovery and development. Vietnam is striving to ensure harmonious, rational, and effective development, balanced economic growth, and cultural and social factors, environmental protection, and climate adaptation. These objectives will be accomplished on the basis of the following focuses. First, viewing growth model, transformation, economic restructuring, green growth, market demand, newly emerging industries, and enhancement of productivity as directions for development. Second, the people are always placed at the center and considered to be the subject, the greatest resource and most important driver, as well as the highest goal of development. Third, Vietnam resolutely rejects the model of growth first, clean up later, and does not condone growth at all costs without sustainability. And Vietnam will certainly not pursue pure economic growth at the expense of social progress and equality. Vietnam is committed to protect the environment for the people. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to all international partners, including the Republic of Korea, for the invaluable support and assistance extended to Vietnam in pursuing its development goals. Vietnam looks forward to the continued and effective assistance and cooperation from other countries, international organizations, and businesses, especially in the implementation of strategic and high-quality infrastructure projects, green economy, digital economy, circular economy, climate change response and adaptation, and smart cities developments for Vietnam's sustainable development goals. As a member state of key international agreements on environment and climate change, and as one of the founding members of the P4G Summit, Vietnam stands ready to contribute actively and responsibly to the common efforts of the international community so that we can fulfill the goals of green recovery and sustainable development. In this spirit, I give my full support for the Seoul Declaration proposed by the government of the Republic of Korea at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that alongside the outcomes of the Leaders' Summit on Climate Change on 22nd of April and the upcoming COP26 in November in the UK, the P4G Summit today will go down in history as a convergence of understanding, shared responsibilities, and commitments to actions. Let us join hands to cement international cooperation so that together we can overcome any challenges, respond effectively to climate change, and realize the goals of global green growth. Thank you for your very kind attention. May our summit be a great success. We stand ready and willing to cooperate with you to achieve the green growth objectives globally. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister Pham, that was very meaningful remarks. Thank you very much. Next, we are going to invite the country that held the summit earlier this year to open up the year of Paris Agreement. Prime Minister Mark Rutte.
President Moon, thank you for organizing this important summit and for Korea's commitment to P4G. Last time I visited Korea, it was the second time in office, was during the Winter Olympics, which were so extremely well organized, and we had very fruitful conversations and meetings. I also wanted to thank Mette for having taken over the initiative in Denmark, which has started in Denmark. And I would also like to wish Ivan good luck in organizing the summit in 2023 in Colombia. President Moon, the Netherlands is proud to be among P4G's main supporters. As our country celebrates 60 years now of diplomatic relations this year, I hope that over the next 60 years we can continue our cooperation, particularly as partners in sustainable growth. As to the question of what our priority should be to achieve net zero by 2050 and the kind of cooperation this will require, my answer will be we need to give it our all. And by all, I mean basically three things. First, we need to get all on board. So we welcome the commitments made so far. And we are pleased that countries representing over 70% of the global economy have now committed to net zero. That is a huge success. But we need more and we need everyone. So current pledges are still likely at this moment to lead us to more than 2 degrees of warming. That means that we need to rest to submit ambitious NDCs and announce their net zero commitments as soon as possible and well before COP26. Of course, governments can't deliver on the Paris Agreement by themselves. It needs to be a joint and also, I would add, an inclusive effort. And so the private sector is key because collectively we need to transform businesses and we need to transform sectors. And that is, I think, why the market-based solutions and public-private cooperation that P4G is, why they are so vital. It is the partnerships that will take us across the finishing line, no doubt. Second, we need to go all in terms of what's needed. As with COVID-19, we need to follow the science, governments and businesses alike. So once we've established our net zero milestones, we need to determine what's needed in the short and also in the medium term to get us on that 1.5 degree pathway. And then we need to act accordingly. And this includes two things. One, greening our finance, as well as moving away from coal, both at home and abroad. In this situation, I would like to welcome Korea's recent announcement to end its public financing of new coal projects overseas. That's an important step. Secondly, we need to move beyond carbon neutrality to climate neutrality. So from carbon neutrality to climate neutrality, and to invest in both mitigation and adaptation. You already mentioned, President Moon, the climate adaptation summit we hosted in January. And finally, we need to go all out in delivering our commitments. This decade has been dubbed the decade of action, and that has been the reason. When it comes to putting all this into practice, we need the next few years to really deliver. So the next few years will be crucial. And here I see P4Gs as a key delivery mechanism. It will help us to follow through on our commitments to the Paris Agreement and SDGs, including beyond COP26. So again, we need to do everything at the same time. We need to give it our all. And having said that, Mr. President, I would like to thank you for organizing this again and for having the opportunity to share my thoughts. And I'm very keen to listen to the other contributions. Thank you so much.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Prime
루트
Minister.
총리님 말씀 잘 들었습니다.
Prime Minister Rutte, thank you.
네덜란드는 기후 위기
Netherlands
대응에서 언제나
are always
중요한 역할을 하고
on the
있습니다.
lead in taking steps to
올해
mitigate
파리
climate
협정에
change.
재가입한
This year,
존 케리 특사님
the U.S. has rejoined the Paris Agreement. We are going to hear from Special President Envoy John Kerry.
Mr. President, thank you to the Republic of Korea for hosting this timely summit on inclusive green recovery. And it was great to be with you in your visit to Washington just the other day. As the world emerges, and many leaders have already said this, from the pandemic, this is a great opportunity for us to reflect on what our post-pandemic world should look like. I know that everyone wants to get back to normal, but unfortunately, we can't be satisfied with that because the fact is normal was already a crisis, an existential one. And if we decide to go back to business as usual, which we are unfortunately seeing in many places, then if we rebuild on autopilot, by default, we are choosing the climate crisis. And that is obviously unacceptable, and future generations will never forgive us for that. In order to avoid the most catastrophic effects of the crisis that we're in, the scientists have been unusually unequivocal. They have told us with certainty that we must work now to limit the Earth's warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we have to reach those net zero emissions by 2050, though many of the promises of 2050 without accompanying plans for 2020 to 2030 leave many of us wondering about the future. 30 years is a long time from now. The harsh reality is we are not on track to accomplish that. Far from it. So we do need to step up our ambitions across the board, and we need national governments to raise the ambition of their 2030 emissions targets. That is exactly why President Biden last month on Earth Day announced an ambitious new target for the United States. And that is a target not just to make up the difference of being absent for the last 4 years, which is inexcusable, but it is a target to try to achieve and keep alive 1.5 degrees. That's why we are pressing other countries to step up with their ambitions as well. Earlier this month, we were thrilled to hear from President Moon that the Republic of Korea is coming forward as early as it can with its own revised 1.5 degree aligned 2030 target. And we now have countries that represent more than 55% of global GDP fully committed to the 1.5 degrees. That obviously means we have another 45% to go. And we need to work with those countries in order to make that feasible. I would remind everyone that about a week ago, the International Energy Agency published a pretty damning report about the net zero transition. The bottom line, according to that report by an entity that was created by the fossil fuel industry, is that we're not in a good place. Emissions are too high now, and this year, they're actually rising at the second fastest rate in history. The IEA experts tell us that to get to net zero by 2050, we need to accomplish 3 things in this decade. Number 1, we need to end the use of carbon-intensive, unabated fossil fuels that drive up emissions. Number 2, we need to supercharge the deployment of clean energy technologies that already exist. And number 3, we need to make major investments to develop and scale up innovative clean energy technologies. And even as we cut emissions, we must also build resilience if we're going to have a truly inclusive recovery. I heard the Prime Minister of Vietnam, my friend, who said that we have to do it according to the conditions of other countries, and this is true. But we all have to do it. We're all feeling the impacts of this crisis already. So we will double our public climate finance to developing countries by 2024 or sooner. We will work to achieve the 100 billion. And in addition, we are working with the private sector to bring literally trillions of dollars to the table now for investment in climate-related initiatives. It has been said again and again that government alone cannot and will not solve this crisis. And this is where the P4G and public-private partnerships to build sustainable and resilient communities are going to be critical. The good news is that getting to net zero by 2050 is not a hardship. It's an incredible economic opportunity. This will be the energy market, the transition market, represents the largest market the world has ever known. And this will be the greatest transformation since the Industrial Revolution. Entire new industries will emerge, industries with multi-trillion-dollar markets. Public and private partnerships can deliver the innovation and those technologies. And once technologies are developed, they will guarantee the markets for them will be viable commercially. So when we talk about net zero goals by 2050, we have to be careful of a complacency that can set in because some people say, oh, it's a long way off. It can be tempting to think that sometime in the next 3 decades, a development in science or technology is going to leapfrog and that some silver bullet will emerge to solve the problem. But while we absolutely must invest in innovation, and it plays a critical role, we have to act now with the technologies we have now, because we can't just bet on a future miracle. No breakthrough will be enough if we miss the opportunity now. So my friends, I repeat what others have said. 2020 to 2030 is the decisive decade. If we fail to make sufficient progress by 2030, it will become scientifically, physically, barring that miracle, impossible to be able to make the reductions that get us to net zero by 2050. On the other hand, if we join together and grab the opportunity right now, we will create millions of jobs, We will improve the health and welfare of our citizens. We will provide greater security for our nations, and we will bring the world together in the greatest common enterprise of all time. We can do this, but we need the political will and the commitment. We cannot afford to wait. So, my friends, it is time to step up, and the United States looks forward to working with all of you to get the job done. Thank you, Mr. President.
캐리 특사님 감사합니다.
Thank you very much,
미국의
Mr.
복귀를
Kerry.
환영합니다.
We welcome the
미국의
return
복귀가
of the U.S.
교육이
and we
대응에
believe
큰
that
힘이
this
되고
move will
있습니다.
be a great support for
태국은
our fight against
BCG
climate
경제
change.
모델을
And
통해
Thailand, through
코로나 위기를
BCG
넘어
model,
녹색
it is
회복을
overcoming
추진하고 있습니다.
COVID-19 and also
프라윕
seeking towards
짜노차
a green
총리
growth.
말씀을
And Prime Minister
듣겠습니다.
Prayut Chan-o-cha from Thailand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished guests. I wish to express my appreciation to President Moon for inviting me to this summit, given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It is unfortunate that we cannot travel and meet in person. I do hope that we will be able to do so in the near future as intended. Having said that, this summit serves as an opportunity for us to discuss and exchange views towards achieving a truly green COVID-19 recovery. COVID-19 has impacted the international community in all aspects and has been a critical obstacle to achieving the SDGs. The pandemic recovery measures should therefore correspond with the implementation of the SDGs and the promotion of sustainable development, in particular, the One Health approach, which takes into account both humans and nature. In addressing these challenges, Thailand has adopted the sufficiency economy philosophy as a development approach which focuses on empowering humans, building resilience, and promoting balance between humans and nature to ensure inclusive development while leaving no one behind. Earlier this year, Thailand announced the implementation of the BCG economic model, or bio-circular green economy, in a holistic manner as our national agenda. It serves as one of several crucial approaches for the country to recover from the pandemic and to build Thailand back better and greener by utilizing science, technology, and innovation, upgrading our industrial capacity, improving productivity, reducing resource loss throughout supply chains, turning waste into value, and minimizing environmental impacts. The model encourages collaboration from all sectors, which is driven by a quadrilateral partnership consisting of government, private sector, academia, and the people to achieve recovery alongside balanced and sustainable growth. I believe that the BCG economic model is an approach that corresponds well to the summit's purposes and supports sustainable development, a shared goal of humankind. Looking ahead, the BCG economic model will be a key agenda in promoting cooperation and building partnerships between Thailand and the international community at all levels, especially in the APEC framework, of which Thailand will assume the chairmanship next year. On the environmental aspect, COVID-19 has hampered relevant cooperation in multilateral fora. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to encourage every country to accelerate its efforts in accordance with its commitment under international laws to address all challenges and to express our collective will to push forward for tangible outcomes at related meetings this year, particularly COP26, which will take place in the United Kingdom this November. An important example of Thailand's efforts to address these significant challenges is the drafting of an Act on Climate Change, a comprehensive law that encompasses all aspects of climate change. This legal framework will provide opportunities for more engagement from the private sector and communities. In the meantime, the Thai government has already set a target of 15 million electric vehicle usage, or around 1/3 of total domestic vehicles by the year 2035, to reduce pollution as well. This also includes the planting of 100 million trees to increase our forests, increasing the use of renewable energies, and reducing waste on land and marine debris in accordance with the strategies set by the government in order to achieve these goals. This will also support trade and industry while respecting human rights principles in business, especially respect, protect, and remedy. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 crisis has uncovered wide-ranging gaps of inequality both within and among countries. Therefore, I would like to invite every country to have consultations on new pathways, especially in technology and innovation exchanges across all levels and beneficial platforms. In order to resolve ongoing problems and achieve truly green and sustainable growth. Finally, I commend the Republic of Korea's new Southern Policy Plus and view that Thailand and the ROK should strengthen our partnership through knowledge and technology exchanges under Thailand's BCG economic model and the ROK's Green New Deal policy, along with other countries' green recovery approaches through international platforms, including APEC, of which Thailand will assume the chairmanship in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Prayut. Thailand's BCG economic model, I sincerely hope that it turns out to be a big success. And up until now, we have heard of the leaders of the member countries of P4G, and now taking a different perspective, we would like to invite international organization leader as well. And as a representative, we are joined by a Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva of the IMF. And as an international organization, please explain us of the actions to fight climate change.
Thank you very much, President Moon. Thank you for bringing us together in a timely manner for this truly global summit, and thank you for your leadership over the years. Your pledge for Korea to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 is an important step forward, and your Green New Deal kickstarts the progress towards the neutrality goal, while also charting a post-COVID-19 recovery path for the Korean economy. And this is exactly what we at the IMF urge countries to do, to follow that path, to embrace an inclusive green recovery. Each country's circumstances are different, but our research shows that there are generally three elements for a comprehensive green policy package, and I want to focus on those today. First, create the right incentive for low carbon growth by pricing carbon emissions and providing clear forward guidance for the future price trajectory. Our research shows that without a gradually increasing price on carbon, the world will not achieve the Paris Agreement goals. Carbon taxes, emission trading systems like the one in Korea, or regulatory measures that are equivalent to pricing carbon. They are rapidly developing, but there is a long way to go. So my first point from an international perspective is speed up coverage of carbon emissions with an appropriate price. Today, we only cover 23% of carbon emissions. Expanding this coverage must be a priority. A predictable, steadily rising carbon price drives businesses towards the right choice of low carbon intensity activities. Just as the first thing for each country is to set a carbon price, large emitter nations can agree on a carbon price floor to scale up mitigation and protect their economies against erosion of competitiveness should some price carbon fairly and others do not. Beyond pricing carbon, another key ingredient is to draw private finance through better standards and taxonomies that help investors around the world understand what is truly green. We currently have over 200 standard schemes. 10 years ago, that was good. Many flowers blooming. Today, we have to move towards making a nice bouquet, and the planned ASEAN taxonomy of sustainable finance can help. The second lesson we learned is making a public investment push for green projects like smart electric grids, vehicle charging stations, building insulation, reforestation, sustainable land management is a must. Government spending early in the pandemic rightly focused on health. Now we need to move towards sustainable growth for the future. And as many countries recover, green investment is gaining momentum, and we see it in the EU, in the US, in Korea, and elsewhere. I just want to say I join Special Envoy Kerry. This is a fantastic opportunity for growth and for jobs not to be missed. And of course, we need to expand public-private partnerships for the innovation the private sector would bring, so we have more speed in moving to green investments. Let me move to the third very important point, and it is a just transition. We need to support the parts of the economy and the people affected by the shift to low carbon growth. Governments need to use their fiscal capacity to create conditions for green transformation in areas that are currently relying on high carbon intensity activities. And vulnerable people should be protected by retraining, reskilling, and also by appropriate social protection measures. For instance, Indonesia is working to replace fossil fuel subsidies with targeted cash transfers so people in need don't bear the cost of this transition. And just as it matters within countries, just transition matters across countries. I'm so excited to hear many of you speaking loud and clear of the need to fulfill the 100 billion a year pledge for climate finance made in the Paris Agreement to help developing countries. Let me finish by a word about us. At the IMF, we are working with our members to integrate climate-related considerations in macroeconomic and financial stability policies. We are customizing our policy advice for an inclusive green recovery. And we are also collaborating with other institutions to advance this goal. We need all hands on deck. Special Envoy Kerry knows this is my phrase on this topic, ACT. P4G is a fantastic place because it is sober, but it is also optimistic and uplifting. And I'm so grateful to have been with you today. Thank you. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, Managing Director. That was very uplifting. Thank you very much. Next, we are going to hear from other leaders. Next, we have Prime Minister Hun Sen from the Kingdom of Cambodia. Cambodia is one of the members of Global Green Growth Fund, and it is doing its utmost in this endeavor.
Of Korea and Chairman of the Summit, Excellency, Madam, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am very pleased to join all the leaders at the second Seoul Summit of Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goal 2030 P4G under the important theme promoting inclusive green recoveries from COVID-19 pandemic. Due to time constraint, I would like to share my personal views related to today's topic on issues that we need to focus on as follows. First, continuing to promote and support the principle of globalization through openness in international trade in order to enhance trade and economic growth, as well as adhering to multilateralism framework in addressing issues in all areas, especially related to climate change. Second, strengthening and expanding regional and international cooperation in relation to sustainable development and promoting the mainstreaming of the concept of green development, particularly in agriculture, urbanization, transportation, infrastructures, circular economy, digital economy, and renewable energy. Third, promoting the development of sustainable finance by creating a favorable environment to mobilize additional resources to ensure the sustainability of action related to climate change prevention through formulation and implementation of green financing mechanism, public-private partnership, PPP mechanism, etc. Fourth, introducing incentives and key reform measures to encourage startups to innovate green business model and to encourage the private sectors to enhance their focus in green investment, including the investment with positive spillovers on society and economy, and commercial investment in areas such as in green technologies and renewable energy. Fifth, promoting the development of green infrastructures and addressing basic infrastructure gaps by emphasizing the importance of promoting sustainable and responsible investment, as well as enhancing the efficiencies of utilization and investment in all sectors through promoting and incentivizing green industry development and the use of green technologies. And six, enhancing the capacities for mitigation and adaptation to climate change through conserving natural resources, developing green parks and cities, and building stronger institutional capacity on research in responding to climate change, as well as the needs in dealing with the natural disaster. And finally, I wish this second summit a great success. Excellency.
예, 훈센 총리님
Very
함께
much, Prime Minister
해주시고
Hun Sen.
또
Thank you
좋은 말씀
for
주셔서
taking
감사합니다.
part in this summit
예,
and for your
오스트리아는
remarks.
기후 중립
Austria
목표 시한을
has
2050년에서
set its deadline to
2040년으로 조정하며
2040 from 2050. It has brought forward the deadline for carbon neutrality, and for its bold steps towards carbon neutrality. I commend them, and I would like to ask the Chancellor, Sebastian Kurz, for his remarks.
Mr. President Moon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hosting us for this very important event today. It is my great pleasure to be part of the P4G Seoul Summit. And I would like to thank you, Mr. President Moon, for this initiative. The last year has been challenging for all of us. At the same time, the COVID-19 crisis was also a reminder of the importance of close international partnerships. We must seize this momentum and enhance our cooperation to make the green and digital transition a reality. Therefore, we will focus on the following three areas. First, Austria supports the European Green Deal and the financial means foreseen for its implementation. We are planning to spend almost half of our COVID stimulus package on sustainable and green investments. And with these investments, we want to promote projects such as investing in public transportation, expanding our renewable energy grid, and enhancing R&D hydrogen. Second, as you said, Mr. President, we have ambitious climate goals. We aim to become carbon neutral already by 2040, and we intend to achieve this milestone without using nuclear energy, which for us is neither safe nor sustainable. Instead, our focus lies on renewables and energy efficiency. Currently, we cover over 70% of our national electricity needs with renewables. Our goal is to cover all of our national electricity consumption with renewables by 2030. Third, we have enhanced our international cooperation. Austria has increased its contribution to the Green Climate Fund, bringing our total share up to 130 million euros. In addition, we also make sure that our bilateral development cooperation projects take into account climate impacts and add to the implementation of the SDGs. Dear colleagues, climate change affects us all, and we must tackle this crisis together. Thank you, Mr. President Moon, for bringing us together. Austria is ready to contribute its share.
Thank you very much, Federal Chancellor Kurz, and thank you very much for sharing the ambitious goal of Austria. And next from Costa Rica, we have Costa Rica, and it is the first country had to be awarded with the UN Champion Award, and it is also leading the initiative for biodiversity. Here is President Carlos Alvarado Quesada.
Thank you very much, President Moon. Thank you for your leadership and also for making P4G such an inspiring meeting and gathering. I was looking through the questions and the topic of climate change and human rights. So let's for a moment think of all the children in the world. Bottom line of this discussion is, if we don't act, if we don't do enough, those children won't have and won't enjoy a planet where to live and to thrive and to raise a family. So that's the key point, one of the key points of this discussion. We must do everything in our hand to change this situation. Costa Rica launched already on February 2019 its decarbonization plan in line with the Paris Agreement, and also because of the legacy of people that work hard in the past decades, we have currently 99.5% of our electric grid being clean and renewable, but still we have a lot of way to go. So when Special Envoy Kerry was talking about a silver bullet on technology, I thought about one piece of ancient technology humanity has that can change the whole situation on climate change. Actually, there is one ancient technology that can fix carbon like any other. And also this piece of ancient technology can provide a habitat for several species of biodiversity. This piece of ancient technology can protect the water, can create beautiful landscapes for tourism and for mental health for people. This piece of technology is called a tree. And many trees together, a forest, that have the capacity, similar with mangroves, to fix carbon like any other. And it's already at our hands. An important part of it is as well that most forests in the world are protected by women and by indigenous communities in developing countries. And they have provided the service of fixing carbon for free for history, for decades, centuries. The poorest of the world. So now I do believe it's time that we start shifting the game. And it's time, if we want to change the situation, also in nature-based solutions to pay for that environmental services that forests and the poorest of the people provide to the world and to the humanity, women, indigenous communities, protecting forests. The High Ambition Coalition is aiming at having a protection of 30% of the land and 30% of the ocean by 2030. That, set by scientists, it's one of the key measures in order to reverse climate change and the climate crisis. And we can do it. Costa Rica is going to, this year, increase its protection area to 30% in the land and 30% in the ocean. And we call upon all the countries to join and do the same. Last but not least, the role by the G20 and the G7 is key. And currently, with the COVID-19 crisis, we're put to test because global solidarity that we require to tackle the climate crisis should be shown as well to tackle the COVID-19 crisis in terms of finance and in terms of vaccines. Because if that doesn't happen, what will be the moral standard that we will be aiming to change things at the current climate crisis? President Moon, thank you very much. I admire your country. I admire the goals that you are aiming at, and let's please keep working together to make these things happen. All the best to you all, Excellencies, and especially to you, President Moon.
예, 알바라도 대통령님.
Thank you very much, President, for your remarks aimed at the future generation. Last but not least, the 20% of this country's territory is designated as the natural reservoir. From the Republic of Peru, we have President Hocares.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, dear world leaders, wherever you are. I am grateful to the President of the Republic of Korea for inviting Peru to this summit of the P4G initiative. Peru is a mega biodiverse country with a vast and rich ocean, home to 70% of the world's tropical glaciers, and the second country with the largest extension of Amazonian forest. We have a diversity of diversity of ecosystems, biological, diversity of soils, forests, water sources, fisheries, energy, minerals, among others. While this makes Peru vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change, it also provides opportunities to turn vulnerability into strength and prosperity through scientific and technological knowledge and public policies that incorporate explicitly climate change considerations. However, we must recognize that the scale of human activities and their impact on the environment has overwhelmed the natural regenerative capacity of the ecosystems that support life. This makes vulnerability a global threat. Neither viruses nor the effects of climate change know borders. Their impacts affect all societies and all economies, threatening the development and living conditions of all. The COVID-19 pandemic has proved us that we need collective, collaborative responses. It is therefore essential to strengthen multilateralism and international cooperation so that these are not limited to declarative statements, but rather involve a true commitment to effective action. I call for the major powers to lead by example. We need to see in them greater ambition for reducing emissions, adapting financing sources for projects in the 5 areas of the declaration that we are adopting today, as well as the production of scientific and technological knowledge and transfer of intellectual property. I recall the preparations nearly half a century ago of the 1972 Stockholm United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. At that time, we began to have a clear concern in issues related to environment and development, which were reaffirmed in the Earth Summit in 1992. At that time, we said that climate change and environmental considerations should not be just an add-on to economic and social policies, but should be an integral part in the design and implementation. Peru, the host of the COP20 2014, is already fulfilling its duties to achieve an inclusive green economy, actively involving the private sector and civil society. That is the reason why we call on the entire international community of states, multilateral organizations, finance organizations, companies, etc., to join in solidarity, especially on these pressing issues. First, the intellectual property regime should be reviewed, especially in the areas of health and energy. Second, financial institutions should primarily grant loans to projects based on the sustainable use of natural resources and invest in products with added value from diversity. Third, give priority to interventions that contribute to green growth and provide clear signals to the private sector in order to align their investments with the transformation required to achieve carbon neutral economy. And finally, redirect the existing financial instruments towards investment projects aligned with environmental sustainability and climate risk criteria. We are one humanity. We share a planet and a common destiny. Each stakeholder, especially governments, has the moral obligation to preserve our planet for its inhabitants and future generations, with inclusivity, tolerance, and respect. And this is what we are doing or trying to do in this most important event. We cannot disappoint the future generations. Thank you very much, Mr. President and Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, President of Peru. That was very meaningful. Thank you, and very helpful. Well, we have now heard from all the leaders. If you have any add-ons that you would like to mention, please show your hand. If we don't have any additional remarks, we will now close the Leaders' Dialogue of P4G Summit Seoul. Thank you all for your participation. We have heard from all the leaders, and we know that we have different situations. However, for a better future and the sustainable future, we have the same target going forward, and we have the will to take actions. Including today's dialogue, the P4G Seoul Summit, I hope that it will act as a catalyst that will bring forward the green future that we are aiming for. Now we're going to adopt the Seoul Declaration.
이제 대한민국 대통령께서
Now the President of South Korea will introduce the Seoul Declaration. Your Excellencies, the leaders of the international organizations, today we have discussed our goals of a green, inclusive green growth towards carbon neutrality. And we have carried out our leaders' dialogue under the 2021 P4G Summit Seoul. And we have had 15 rounds of subcommittee meetings. And we also have discussed issues and ways to participate with the international organizations, the civil society, and also the future generations. We agreed to adopt the Seoul Declaration. Here are the following details of the Seoul Declaration. The leaders agree that the climate change issue is also not only in the sector of environment, but it also stretches to the economic and also other sectors as well. And we also agreed on that we need to fight COVID-19 pandemic through a climate change as well. And we have also shared the same view that we need to limit the temperature increase to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And this is also stipulated in the Paris Agreement. And we also have laid out ambitious plans and targets for reducing the carbon emissions. And through this very specific summit, we will bolster a public and private partnership. And we sincerely hope that the COP26 will also turn out to be a great success. And the leaders also agreed that the P4G needs to go in line with the UN-initiated SDGs. And we also agreed that it has served as a complementation to such an efforts. And going forward in the areas of water, food and agriculture, cities, and also in many other sectors, we will be bolstering private and public participation. Going forward, in order to tackle climate change, we also share the same view that there is a crucial role to play from the private sector and the civil societies. We urge the corporations and the private sector to highlight the importance of such agreements, and we believe that this is the only way forward. And all of our leaders agree that this decision made today is aimed at making a better future for the future generations. We will also open our ears to the youth. And also going forward, last but not least, the P4G 2021 Seoul Summit. Through this initiative, we will aim to achieve inclusive green growth towards carbon neutrality. We have garnered our attention and also our resolution. And in 2023, we hope to meet once again in Colombia. And this concludes the details of the Seoul Declaration adopted by the leaders. And once again, I extend my deepest appreciation to all of the leaders of countries and also international organizations.
After the agreement with all the leaders, the Seoul Declaration has now been adopted. Please give a big hand to welcome the Seoul Declaration. Thank you very much. Last but not least, I would like to turn the mic over to the President of Colombia, which is the next host country of P4G Summit.
Thank you so much once again, President Moon, and thank you to all the heads of state and world leaders that have participated in this very important summit. Out of this very important event, we have all clear that climate change is the most challenging issue of our time. And obviously, we have to think on building back better, considering that the world needs to evolve and needs to defeat the effects that have been created by COVID-19. We're certain out of this summit that we're all committed to join actions so that by 2030, we can reach the highest reduction of CO2 emissions in our history. But we have also committed ourselves to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. The efforts that have been shared today involve not only energy transition, clean mobility, fighting deforestation, but most importantly, creating an environment in which every single citizen knows how to contribute with their own individual carbon footprint reduction. We have also shared the necessity of providing resources to state actors and the private sector so that their goals are reached. But we have also seen that this is the moment in which we have to consider the importance of multilateralism and also of international financial institutions to fund with resources many of these activities. This summit has demonstrated that we will get to Glasgow full of commitments, but also with all the political action that is needed. And we know that the leadership that has been shared to the world by Korea and by President Moon with the Korean New Deal is also an inspiring set of policies that we must all embrace. In our particular case in Colombia, we launched the Pact for Colombia last year, and that pact involves the highest investment ever made in our country in energy transition and clean mobility. But we also know that green and nature-based solutions must be put in place in developing economies. Everything that has been shared today is a demonstration that this generation is going to be the generation that will fight the effects of climate change, but is going to create the ethics of the 21st century in which each individual will know what can he or she do to reduce their own carbon footprint. This is the moment for us to work jointly. This is the moment to be bold and to embrace everything that is needed at the policy level, but in our individual also behavior. Thank you so much, President Moon. Colombia is delighted to be the next host of the P4G Summit in 2023. As we have said, Colombia is the home of 50% of the high altitude ecosystems in the world. 35% of our soil is Amazonic land. And we have also coast in both oceans. We know as a nation that if we embrace this cause and we reach carbon neutrality and we reach the highest reduction of 51% of CO2 emissions by 2030, aligned with SDGs, Colombia will be a leader. But this is also an inspiring moment so that local governments also embrace this cause. We will hope that in 2023, this summit will continue to trigger new actions and new movements around our nations so that every single business, every single NGO, and every single individual knows that the ethics of the 21st century involve that we must face and stop the effects of climate change. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the world leaders that have participated today. And Colombia will be waiting for you with our open arms in 2023.
Thank you very much, President Duque Marquez. Colombia is going to host the third P4G summit, and I hope that a great success of this summit in 2023. We now have to wrap up the summit. I would like to thank everyone joining this long session and all the leaders who mustered our strength together for the Seoul Declaration. For carbon neutrality and sustainable growth, I believe that we have gathered our consensus, and I hope that this will serve as an opportunity to expand our horizon towards the environmental driven our actions. And I hope that all the actors could come on board and implement their actions. The green action we should now start. With this, we would like to close the 2021 P4G Summit Seoul. Thank you once again for your attention and participation. Thank you very much.
And that is a wrap of the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. More than 60 global leaders and heads of international organizations came together for the two-day summit to coordinate efforts against climate change, and the summit drew to a close with the adoption of the Seoul Declaration. Our senior Blue House correspondent is at the summit venue in downtown Seoul, and she joins us live. Now, Minji, it's been a long day for the leaders and for all of us. It's almost midnight here in Korea. The 2021 P4G Seoul Summit brought down the curtain with the declaration and Seoul passing the baton to Bogota. Give us the highlights.
Right, Ganyang, during the closing ceremony, President Moon thanked global leaders and the heads of international organizations that took part in the two-day event, saying that he hopes it was an opportunity to boost green cooperation and step up efforts toward carbon neutrality. We also had closing remarks from Colombian President Iván Duque, who will host the next P4G summit in 2023. Now, prior to the closing ceremony, Moon chaired the leaders' dialogue for discussions on green recovery, carbon neutrality, and public-private partnerships. The speakers included leaders and high-level officials from Denmark, Colombia, the US, and the EU, as well as the IMF's managing director. President Moon proposed that the international community should bolster cooperation and with a focus on technology and financial resources in order to achieve an inclusive green recovery. He highlighted South Korea's Green New Deal initiative, saying that the government plans to pump in $75 billion into related projects over the next 10 years to create some 330,000 new jobs. Moon stressed that there are no borders when it comes to climate crises, highlighting the need for solidarity between advanced and developing countries. He said South Korea will play the role of a bridging nation by increasing official development assistance and creating a Green New Deal trust fund. The president also stressed the importance of protecting the waters and called for enhanced discussions at the UN level on resolving the issue of plastic and other debris.
Now, Minji, the global leaders who took part in the P4G summit, they have adopted the Seoul Declaration, urging global efforts to overcome COVID-19 and the climate crisis, as well as to implement the Paris Climate Accord. What are the key points of this declaration?
Right, Kanyang, the leaders in the declaration recognize that climate crisis is a global urgent threat, and that its impact extends beyond the environment and includes social, economic, and security challenges. The leaders also say green recovery will steer efforts to rebuild the economy that's been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the leaders also agreed to further strengthen cooperation to realize the goals of the Paris Agreement, that being to limit global warming to close to 1.5 degrees Celsius. They stressed the need for countries to submit their enhanced goals for carbon reduction before the UN Climate Change Conference in November. The declaration also said the leaders agreed to develop new green technologies and scale up the existing ones to speed up the progress in achieving net zero emissions. They also stressed the importance of environment, social, and governance, or ESG, encouraging businesses to commit to improve their ESG performance. Last but not least, they pledged to proactively share new ideas and spirit of the future generation through P4G partnerships and pay close attention to the voices of the youth, recognizing that our actions today will define our lives of tomorrow. Back to you, Kanya.
Kim Min-ji from live from the summit venue with the details of the Seoul Declaration as well as the leaders' dialogue today at the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. Thank you, Min-ji.
기후 위기는 코로나와 마찬가지로 가장 취약한 지역과 계층, 어려운 이들을 가장 먼저 힘들게 하다가 끝내는 모든 인류의 삶을 고통스럽게 할 것입니다. 내년 5월 우리는 제2차 P4G 정상회의를 서울에서 개최합니다. 국제사회와 함께 탄소 중립 실현에 앞장서겠습니다.
And you're watching Arirang News special live coverage of the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit conclusion. Now let's go over to our Blue House correspondent Hong Yu, who is also there at the summit venue in downtown Seoul. Now that we've gone over President Moon's statement, we'd like to know what the 12 other leaders of states and international organizations had to say during their leaders' dialogue.
Well, Kanyang, 13 participants of the Leaders Dialogue Summit tonight included Denmark, Colombia, EU, and the US. They participated in a debate on 3 topics, which included inclusive green recovery from COVID-19, global response to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, and efforts to enhance public and private cooperation in climate change. Denmark's prime minister said partnership is the basis for climate change response. She said that this is the time to come up with an innovative solution in dealing with climate change, for which Denmark plans to continue to cooperate with South Korea. Colombia's president said despite the fact they are only contribute to less than 1% of global carbon emission, they're willing to contribute in achieving carbon neutrality. Colombia pledged to make continuous efforts in expanding the use of electric vehicles and production of renewable energy. The president of the European Commission said that year 2021 will determine the next 10 years. They are to reduce 55% of carbon emission in the next 10 years. Vietnam's prime minister said developed countries should play the leading roles in helping developing countries to follow along energy transitions and contribute in reducing carbon emission. U.S. Special Envoy for Climate John Kerry emphasized that to prevent crisis, the global community needs to act now. He said countries should aim to reduce Earth's temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius and welcomed South Korea for joining such effort. That would include reducing use of fossil fuels and investing on green renewable energy. The U.S. announced that they will invest about twice more on developing countries to aid their energy transition. Countries should aim to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 to produce more jobs and enhance state security.
Well summed up, Yu. This was a virtual summit, right, Yu? Because of COVID-19, they must have put a lot of effort into keeping the event entertaining enough. How was it different from previous face-to-face summits?
Well, Kanyang, as you just said, the P4G Seoul Summit was held virtually. As the host country, South Korea wanted to show off its advanced technology in augmented reality and advanced media. During the Leaders Dialogue session tonight, the organizers used a technology, what they called video mapping technology, to produce hologram-like images of sandy coast, Suncheonman Bay wetlands in Jeollanam-do province, and mudflats, which the Ministry of Environment had announced could disappear due to climate change. Today, you could also see objects that demonstrate South Korea's renewable energy technologies. That includes a Hyundai Motors hydrogen-powered car, a solar energy module made by Hanwha Q-Cells, and Tucson Heavy Industries and Construction's wind power generator. During the opening ceremony yesterday, they also used a video mapping technology to fill in the empty space with a newly translated version of a painting of Inwang Mountain in Seoul made in the Joseon Dynasty. During the opening ceremony, they also used what they called Viva Studios immersive technology, which visualized an augmented reality of South Korea's pine tree forests and endangered animals. Back to you, Kanyang.
Well, that was absolutely stunning, I remember. All right, Hong Yu, thank you so much for that coverage, or Hong Yu from the summit venue as well. Thank you. The role of finance is particularly important in fostering green recovery in the post-COVID-19 era. For a more in-depth discussion, we have joining us live from Geneva, Borger Brende, president of the World Economic Forum. World Economic Forum is an essential partner organization of the P4G Summit. Borger Brende, welcome to our special show. It's great to have you with us.
No, thank you, and good evening in Seoul.
Now, World Economic Forum is one of the essential partners of the P4G Summit. Could you first tell us about the role of World Economic Forum in the summit?
So first, congratulations on a very successful summit, also to the government of Korea. We were very honored to be a special partner because we know that we have to mobilize also the private sectors for supporting the Sustainable Development Goals and also net zero, the climate work. And we felt that this was our contribution into the summit, making sure also that the private sector joining the call for action, that this needs to be the decade of delivery.
Now, Professor Klaus Schwab, of course, chairman and founder of the World Economic Forum, took part in the leader session on day one of the P4G Seoul Summit. What were some of the key takeaways from the leader session from the World Economic Forum's point of view?
We followed almost 50 world leaders that contributed, and I think the essence from all of them were that we have no time to lose. We know that we need technology breakthroughs to meet the net zero target in 2050. But we also have to step up the work we're doing now to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. The overall goal is to eradicate all extreme poverty by 2030, but unfortunately for the first time in 30 years, we are seeing that extreme poverty is growing this year, maybe with almost 100 million people due to the pandemic. So we need to double down on fighting climate change, but we also have to do more to make sure that we have an inclusive recovery, not ending up with more people living in extreme poverty and children losing out on their future and potential for education.
Now, you yourself participated in the P4G Summit with a particular focus on the role of the finance industry in the global fight against climate change. What is it and why is it so important?
We know that there is a huge financing gap. If you're going to be successful in moving towards a society where we see more renewables in the energy mix, we need to finance this. And everything that we want to make happen, being the green transition, it needs also to make sure that the money is on the table. And so far, we know there has been a huge gap, and the private sector is now stepping up. You know, a lot of big private equity companies, but also other investors are saying that they want to move into the green sector, and with that, it's a real change because we are seeing that fossil fuel projects, for example, coal, is having a lot of challenges now in being financed, and the financial sector sends strong signals that they want really to see this green transition happening.
Well, the world economy was hit hard, like you said, by the COVID pandemic, with many countries boosting stimulus measures to keep their economies afloat. How can the world seek post-pandemic economic recovery and at the same time continue efforts towards the goal of carbon neutrality?
That's a crucial question. I think those two things have to go hand in hand. And fortunately, we have seen out of the $15 trillion that have been put on the table as stimulus, we haven't seen that kind of money since the Second World War. Many countries have said that part of this stimulus has to go into the green sector. It has to secure that we get the necessary technology, but also that we're financing renewables. And that means a lot of money, for example, in making sure that transportation is getting greener, that we also have low-hanging fruits now in the green area that we are going to move forward on. And just look at the renewable sector, what new technology breakthroughs has meant in the last decade. Solar is 1/10 of the price it used to be 10 years ago. And we need more of these breakthroughs, for example, in hydrogen, green hydrogen, but also I foresee huge breakthroughs in carbon capture and storage, but we can't do this without having it financed.
And you also gave a keynote speech on the development of green finance models across the globe during the summit here in Seoul. In your observation, which country has set the best example of green finance, and what should we be learning from it?
That's a tricky question. A lot of countries are now taking leadership, including the Republic of Korea. I think this is a good competition. We have seen that, for example, the European Union have said that out of the 750 billion euros that they have launched for stimulus, 40% is going to go into the green transition. We're also seeing that the US is stepping up, and many countries combine the green transition into also financing the digital transition. And we know that all the new technologies related to the fourth industrial revolution can also be technologies can work in the interest of the green transition.
And last but not least, Birgit Brende, what has the World Economic Forum been doing to tackle climate change, and what are the organization's long-term action plan in the race to zero emissions and zero waste?
So the World Economic Forum started at least a decade ago, and we called for action among the companies. But now we have seen that the private sector has become a real driver for this transition. So governments feel pressured also by companies saying that we're going net zero 2030 or 2040 or 2050. And we're seeing also, as we already discussed, the financial sector is saying we're not putting money into what is old technology and it's pollution. We want to invest the money in the future and securing our planet, because we know the cost of inaction far exceeds the cost of action. We've seen it through the pandemic. We have to build resilience now also when it comes to climate change, and we need to change the way we are looking at energy on our planet.
All right, President of the World Economic Forum, Birgit Brende, live for us from Geneva. Thank you so much. We deeply appreciate your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Now, on the sidelines of the P4G summit, South Korea also hosted another environmentally conscious event, this time an upcycled fashion. Here's our Kim Hyun-sung.
Top models struck down a brightly lit runway, wearing used plastic. South Korea's government staged an environmentally conscious fashion show and exhibition at Gyeongbokgung Palace on Monday, with fashion pieces made out of upcycled trash. Spotted at the event was South Korea's First Lady Kim Jong-suk, along with family members of foreign ambassadors in South Korea. She first attended an exhibition displaying items made out of day-to-day waste, including milk cartons, plastic, banners, and used firefighters' protective gear.
이걸 가지고 다시 업사이클링을 해서 이렇게 훌륭한 가방인데 이게 밤에도 들고 다니면은 야광이라서 굉장히 좋은 그런 것도 되겠네요.
She also handed out some of the best items to the other attendees. At the event, First Lady Kim was also sporting the upcycled look, in a Korean traditional hanbok made out of 70 recycled plastic bottles, designed by hanbok artisan Park Sul-nyo. By mixing traditional hanbok with modern designs of upcycled clothing, the event hoped to send a message of timeless sustainability, as many are not fully aware of how the fashion industry can have a negative impact on the environment. Studies show that creating one pair of jeans leaves 13 kilograms of a carbon footprint, while manufacturing a single t-shirt drains 2,700 liters of water. South Korea's fashion industry alone dumps out 80,000 tons of leftover fabric every year. Creating fashion with upcycled items is a win-win by putting good use to day-to-day waste and easing the fashion industry's burden on the environment. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
As COP26 draws closer,
I'm delighted to see so many of my fellow world leaders taking such a positive stance in the fight against climate change. Our hosts today, for example, the Republic of Korea, have committed to achieving net zero by 2050, so that in the years and decades that follow, the world can look back on COP26 as the moment we chose the right path, not just for our planet, but for all our futures.
President Moon Jae-in, colleagues, it is my great pleasure to join you on the cloud for the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. Colleagues, whether we go green or not today could make or break our development in the future. China stands ready to work with all sides to boost a green recovery and create a better future for all humanity. Thank you.
为了我们的绿色未来，现在行动。
Excellencies, friends, I thank President Moon Jae-in and the government of the Republic of Korea for hosting this year's P4G Summit. The title of this initiative expresses exactly what the world needs now: global partnership. If all governments embrace the same goals, we'll have an opportunity for a real partnership that will equip us to rise to the biggest challenge of our lives. Let us work together for a sustainable and equitable future for all people on a healthy planet. Thank you.
Yang Mulia Presiden Moon Jae-in dan para pemimpin yang hadir pada KTT penting ini. Pertama-tama, saya mengucapkan terima kasih dan selamat kepada Republik Korea. Kerjasama dan upaya bersama untuk menyelesaikan masalah bersama menjadi syarat fundamental bagi kesuksesan ekonomi hijau. Apalagi di saat dunia dalam masa pemulihan pandemi sekarang ini.
I would like to thank the Republic of Korea for organizing this important summit. COVID-19 has consumed our attention for more than 1 year. But we all know there is another great challenge, because climate change has not taken a break during this pandemic. I would even say we have rediscovered a bit of modesty. We have come back to what matters most: the health of our families, of our communities, and the health of our planet. One world, one health, all of us in this together. Thank you.
The P4G Global Initiative is crucial to addressing the mounting challenges of climate change and accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Ethiopia has taken bold climate mitigation measures, such as launching an ambitious climate-resilient green economy strategy in 2011 at the COP17 in Durban, 4 years prior to the Paris Agreement. We need to increase our collective efforts to build a greener economy that is faster and better than the existing business-as-usual growth model, which is insufficient for the challenges of the 21st century. I thank you.
Exzellenzen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, die weltweite Pandemielage ist ernst, aber der Klimawandel ist es nicht minder. Und das erfordert auch, über die Pandemie hinaus zu denken. In welcher Welt wollen wir morgen leben? Und was müssen wir heute dafür tun? Denn Tatsache ist, der Klimawandel bedroht mehr und mehr unsere Lebens- und Wirtschaftsgrundlagen. Wir erschließen uns Zukunft, statt sie zu verbrauchen. Daher danke ich allen, die daran mitwirken, unsere Welt resilienter und nachhaltiger zu gestalten. Nicht irgendwann, sondern jetzt. Nicht irgendwie, sondern ehrgeizig und entschlossen. Das ist das Signal, das ich mir von diesem Gipfel wünsche.
Your Excellency, President Moon, distinguished participants, it's my great honor to join you for this leaders' session at the P4G Summit. At our summit here, we will all agree on the need for a speedy transition towards net zero carbon emissions and the regeneration of the Earth's environmental systems that we all so much rely on. Together, we can achieve the transition towards a net zero future. I'm glad to offer the World Economic Forum's full support for this joint global venture we take on together. Let's not waste this opportunity.
안녕하십니까. Mesdames et messieurs, les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Président Moon, cher ami, la communauté scientifique nous alerte de façon de plus en plus précise chaque année sur le fait que si nous voulons donner une chance de survie à nos écosystèmes et aux générations qui nous succéderont, nous devons enrayer la crise climatique qui s'emballe. La neutralité carbone s'impose partout comme notre horizon commun. D'ici là, ne lâchons rien, car le temps presse. Et chacun doit être au rendez-vous. Nous ferons tout pour y être, en redoublant d'efforts, en redoublant d'investissements, en continuant à accélérer. Et nous avons besoin d'être tous ensemble pour nous coordonner. Je vous remercie et bon travail.
To successfully fight climate change, we need global net zero emissions around 2050. We need to get there in 3 decades. We need to act today. We have seen countries and companies step up their climate ambitions to meet a net zero future. Now it's the time to turn these ambitions into action.
Now that the Seoul Declaration has been adopted, the P4G Seoul Summit has come to a close and the baton has been handed over to Bogota, Colombia. I want to bring in the climate ambassadors and the climate experts of the Troika countries. Joining us live from the host city of the inaugural P4G Summit, Copenhagen, is Thomas Anker Christensen, climate ambassador of Denmark. Ambassador Christensen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, right here in Seoul with me, speaking for the host nation of the 2021 P4G Summit, is Professor Chung So-young, Director of the Center for Global Climate and Marine Governance at Korea University. Thank you, Professor Chung.
Thank you very much.
And live with us, representing Colombia, the host country of the 2023 P4G Summit, and the final member of this Troika system is Ambassador Juan Carlos Kaiser Rosero. He's the Colombian ambassador to Seoul. Ambassador Kaiser, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Now, we have a full house today and a full Troika. I want to begin with you, Ambassador Christensen. You now take the very senior seat in the Troika as the inaugural host of the P4G Summit. Copenhagen, at the conclusion of the 2018 summit, chose Seoul as next host to tackle climate change and perhaps carry on the P4G legacy. First of all, how do you assess the progress made since the inaugural summit in Copenhagen in 2018?
Well, first of all, congratulations to my Korean friends for the immense success of this summit. 2018 was almost like an experiment, but Korea, through its engagement, has shown the proof of concept that partnerships for development, for climate action work. Despite of the pandemic, despite of all the difficulties over the last 3 years in getting this off the ground, the proof is there. You have more than 60 leaders joining the summit, hundreds of businesses, mayors, civil society. You have a P4G platform that now has attracted hundreds of millions of dollars in investments, and more than 50 partnerships that are now maturing and ready for prime time. So what started out as an idea in Copenhagen has now really matured into a full-fledged initiative in Seoul, and hopefully will now be a beautiful swan once we get to Colombia in 2 years.
Yes, we hope so too. Now, back in 2018, why did Denmark choose South Korea as the host country of the second P4G summit? And as we conclude the P4G Seoul summit, any regrets on that decision that you made back 3 years back?
Not at all, not at all. When we launched the Green Growth Alliance between Korea and Denmark 10 years ago, your then President Lee said famously, Denmark is a first mover and Korea is a fast mover. And I think that's the essence of our partnership and why Korea was the obvious second host for the P4G summit. In the last year or so, Korea has made incredible progress on its climate ambition, on its climate agenda, the 2050 target, the commitment to deliver an updated climate action plan by COP26, the announcement to end the public financing of coal technology investments. I mean, Korea has really moved at high speed into becoming a green leader, and I'm sure very soon also a green technology leader in Asia.
So, Ambassador Christensen, what's your assessment of the summit outcome and your key takeaways from the Seoul Declaration?
I think it's a very strong declaration. You have more than 40. A declaration that pledges us to a 1.5-degree target for 2050, that has serious announcements on energy transition, coal phase out, nature-based solutions, action on cities, public-private partnerships. I mean, it's as I said, a proof of concept of the whole partnership idea that underpins P4G, and which is really the unique sweet spot of this initiative. You have no other global summits with global leaders that has this focus.
I want to now move on to you, Ambassador Kaiser. The P4G baton has now been handed to Bogota, Colombia. When I spoke with South Korea's climate ambassador and the executive director of the P4G preparatory office, Yoo-yeon Chul, earlier this week, not only did he say it was South Korea's wish, but as someone who has had an extra year preparing for this summit amid the pandemic, it was also his personal wish that Bogota take the P4G flame to 2023. How do you feel to be hosting and preparing for the 2023 P4G Bogota summit for the next 2 years? And what do you take away from the Seoul Declaration?
Okay, thank you so much. We're very grateful to the Republic of Korea for hosting the successful summit and the practical example of change it provided. The summit has led us to come together to accelerate the most innovative market-based partnerships in this critical decade of action. As the COVID-19 pandemic affected all segments of the population and the economies, the summit highlighted the importance of immediate climate action to ensure that a green, inclusive, and resilient economic recovery is achieved. This summit was a pivotal time in P4G's history and also a stepping stone to COP26 by boosting high-level political and private action to invest and scale in innovative solutions. We can expect more transformative partnerships delivering tangible SDGs and climate action impact. In the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis, our country has embarked on an immense effort to recover our economy in a sustainable way. If we are to meet goals by 2030, we need to double our efforts to eradicate poverty, reduce global inequalities, and shift the world onto a 1.0 Celsius trajectory. The Seoul Declaration just adopted is another great momentum to our recovery efforts and the promotion of innovative, green, and sustainable solutions.
Right, so another great momentum. We heard from your president in the Leaders' Dialogue that Colombia has been contributing to the world's race towards zero emissions, adopting national environmental campaigns like My Carbon Footprint. Why don't you tell us more about Colombia's efforts towards carbon neutrality, and what are your priorities in the fight against climate change?
In his remark, President Duque presented the multiple efforts that the Colombian government has delivered to stimulate the economy and employment, while assisting the poorest and most vulnerable communities amidst COVID-19 crisis. An unprecedented time in history requires unprecedented solutions. That is why President Duque highlighted the importance of the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda as a blueprint for a post-COVID-19 world. Reducing emissions in transportation is a top priority for Colombia as we plan our low carbon recovery and work to meet our ambitious climate action targets. That is why President Duque exalted P4G's uniqueness in bringing a new form of public-private partnerships in which not only the governments, but also the private sector and the civil society jointly take part in the transformation actions to achieve the SDGs by 2030. by bridging the government agenda and private sector activities. P4G partnerships have supported the deployment of hundreds of e-buses across Colombian cities with the aim to pioneer the adoption of electric vehicles in transportation systems across Latin America. Finally, President Duque presented our national strategies around an inclusive green recovery towards carbon neutrality. Colombia is committed to act in a responsible way to reduce our emission by 51% by 2030 and to be carbon neutral by 2050. In our updated national determined contribution, we communicated a comprehensive set of economy-wide mitigation targets, and we are currently finishing our long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategy that we hope to communicate in the next weeks.
Sure, thank you so much for that. Now, Professor Chung, from South Korea's perspective, how do you evaluate South Korea's role in leading this year's P4G summit? Do you think it's successfully positioned itself as one of the global leaders now in the world's fight against climate change?
I think this hosting the P4G summit meeting this time in Seoul was a very good evidence of the Korea's potential role as world leader in addressing climate change as a whole. As we saw that it invited most of the important world leaders, not only from the governments, also international organizations and private sectors, and then it narrowed down to focus on the several important issues that all the world leaders needs to focus on, including green recovery, and then carbon neutrality, and more importantly, public-private partnership, and focusing on listing some of the targeted areas. So in the sense that Korea showed its potential and now its ability actually to take a leadership along with other leaders of the world in climate area.
So, Professor Chung, does South Korea have a unique edge in playing a role as a bridge between developing and developed economies in achieving inclusive green recovery towards carbon neutrality?
Yeah, I think so. And then Korea has been uniquely placed in the sense that as a non-Annex I country, in other words, as a developing country under the UN classification, that Korea was the first developing country who pledged financial contributions to the GCF, and then we had a record of hosting the GGGI, and then we have another record of introducing ETS systems as a developing countries. And as a developing country, we had even a lot of things to share with the developed world, and then we can develop the bridging role together with all the necessary partners in the world.
Ambassador Christensen, Denmark and South Korea both share a role in bridging the gap between the developed and the developing world in this battle against climate change. Now, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry earlier in the Leaders' Dialogue committed to doubling climate finance to developing nations by 2024. Are South Korea and Denmark doing enough?
I think we are doing enough, yes. We doubled our climate finance between 2017 and 2021. And in the current new strategy being discussed in Danish Parliament, we are looking to add on much more financing, including also for climate adaptation. And we are working to urge other donors to do more as well. And we have to remember, for many emerging economies, they are looking to Korea as the example to follow. And we have to ensure that they take a low carbon development path, that they choose energy sources that don't have carbon emissions, and where in a way they leapfrog the fossil era that we have gone through. In that way, we can show that there is a truly green transformation harboring or leading to a new industrial revolution that is low or actually zero carbon or even carbon negative. And I think for many developing countries, that is a path they can choose that will actually be beneficial to them, and where they will be very soon world leading in those areas. The area where our aid is the most needed is probably in adaptation for the most vulnerable and poorest, the small islands, the countries in Africa that are seeing severe droughts and floods. And that's where really the kind of sort of aid that we give is most needed. For many other countries, it's about getting the market forces to play, to blend finance, to leverage private investments by creating by securitizing the investments and mitigating the risk.
Now, Professor Chung, do we, South Korea, have the political will and commitment to act now to keep global warming within the 1.5 degree threshold?
I think so. President Moon himself emphasized Korea's ambitious plans to further reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And then he promised to us that he will address that, announce that plan in upcoming conference parties of the UNFCCC. And then as demonstrated throughout the P4G summit meeting, that Korea has a lot of potentials and actually actual resources to promote green finance and then promoting the technologies. And also we care about the poor and who are in need of the help from all of us. And then in the sense that, yes, my answer is surely yes, that Korea is following that line.
Ambassador Kaiser, many point to the lack of participation by larger economies as a limit of P4G summit. For future reference of the next host country, Colombia, what areas of this year's summit could have been better in your perspective, and how can the summit be further enhanced?
Climate action is a priority for Colombia. Although we account for only 0.6% global GCH emission, we are committed to act in a responsible manner, and we have reiterated the importance of acting basic of science. In December 2020, we communicate our update and enhanced nationally determined contribution, NDC, under the Paris Agreement. We commitment to a 51% greenhouse gas GHG emissions reduction for 2030 to peak emissions as soon as possible. And in any case before 2030, we will have a carbon budget before 2023, and we include a new goal for a black carbon. This is a technically solid decision that aims for the maximum ambition, but also for feasible goals that put us on the right path to achieve the carbon neutrality in 2050. As part of our NDC, we also presented our first national communication on adaptation due to our geographic location. Colombia is highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Therefore, implementing adaptation plans in all our territory is a priority for us that has been included in the National Development Plan, in our NDC, and our National Climate Change Policy. Finally, we have also been working our long-term, low-carbon emission development strategy, the 2050 strategy that we hope to communicate next month with the participation of civil society, climate change experts, and the private sector. We have built this strategy that proposes a series of paths for being carbon neutral in 2050, including by protecting and managing biodiversity, promoting sustainable consumption and production partners, furthering energy transition and sustainable mobility, ensuring a just transition, and enhancing our resilience and adaptation capacity.
Right, and this is for all three of you gentlemen. In your view, what is one of the most important and urgent challenges that need our immediate attention or action? I want to start with you, Ambassador Christensen.
Well, the most urgent action is on coal. According to science, coal is the most polluting and the worst contributor to climate change, and we have to phase out and end coal, according to science, in in OECD countries by 2030 and in the rest of the world by 2040. That's a rallying call from UN Secretary General. And then following on coal, according to the IEA, the International Energy Agency, we have to curtail supply of oil and gas by 2050 to a very large extent in order to stay within the 1.5 degrees. So basically phasing out and ending fossil fuels in our energy mix while scaling up and at very fast-paced renewables, just like Korea is doing, also with the new offshore wind farms coming online within the next 10 years.
Professor Chung.
Well, I think that in addition to what the Danish ambassador just said, I believe that one of the most urgent matters that requires our efforts is to develop the delivery model that can actually make all these good ideas, plans that happen. And then we have been talking about the finance, we have been talking about the technology, we have been talking about the private partnership, public-private partnership. We talked about helping the poor. And then question is whether or not we have a concrete delivery model to realize all these ideas on ground based on all these principles and then values that we talked about. And in the sense that not only governments, also international organizations and the private sectors, we all need to work together to bring this on table.
And last but not least, Ambassador Kaiser.
Building back better is shared agenda, and it's an opportunity to rethink long-term growth goals. The second Global P4G Summit united heads of states, CEOs, and civil society, leaders not only from emerging economies, but also from the largest economy. Since its launch in 2018, P4G has built a robust set of partnerships critical to achieving short-term COVID-19 recovery response and long-term implementation of SDGs. And we can only expect that the ecosystem of 12 partner countries and more than 240 corporate and civil society partners grow. P4G 12 country partners are committed to advancing breakthrough solutions to achieve the SDGs and the goals and Paris Agreement goals. And our powerful action-oriented alliances are prime example to the world of how these investments are critical to achieving transformative impact on the ground.
So the time is now, and it is time now to act. I'd like to end our segment by hearing your thoughts on the Troika system. As I mentioned, South Korea's climate ambassador Yoo Yeon-chul told me about the Denmark, South Korea, Colombia Troika system that will carry on the P4G spirit. Ambassador Christensen, how do you plan to work with these two countries in carrying on the legacy of the summit?
Well, we have a steering committee where we will be handling the baton of chairing it to Korea later this week. But then we will stay engaged in the committee, both politically, but also with Danish businesses, Danish investors, our development fund. And we will work closely with Korea as the chair, preparing with Colombia the next summit. And I'm sure we will be extremely successful in taking this forward. There is also a P4G hub, a secretariat based in Washington, D.C. at the World Resources Institute, and they cover they provide the continuity in terms of support mechanism and measures, and with them and our Troika, we will be very solid in our preparations.
Professor Chung, what kind of a role do you believe Seoul can play in keeping this Troika up and running?
Well, actually, this Troika system has been some of the popular methods in running the similar summit meetings. South Korea already has some experience in this system, including the G20 summit meeting in Seoul and also nuclear security summit meeting in Seoul. So usually what Korea can do is to make a bridging also between the Denmark and Colombia, so that we can make sure that initial aims and spirit of the P4G summit meeting can be further continued through Korea and then working together with Colombia. Of course, we can also talk to Colombia in terms of identifying what are the focus areas of the agendas at the government level, at the private sector level, and then we can also work together with already existing secretaries, other related stakeholders involved, including not only the hub of the P4G, also Global Green Growth Institute, and some other related associates in this process. In the sense that we will make a continuity, also we will make a new agenda that will give us additional contributions through Colombia.
And Ambassador Kaiser, how does Bogota plan to make full use of this trigger system for a successful P4G Bogota in 2023? And what are Colombia's deliverables for the Bogota summit?
This is a catalytic moment for collective actions towards carbon neutrality, an important inflection point to help further unite our global response from strengthening climate action to build back better and greener in the post-COVID-19 world. This is also a striking opportunity to strengthen the international commitment towards the 2030 agenda. International cooperation is a pivotal in sectors such as energy transitions and efficiency. But furthermore, we need multilaterals to find solutions to global challenges like climate change. We need joint and coordinate efforts to ensure both public and private investment in sustainable sectors and to promote innovation and technology. We need better public-private synergies and better economic tools to mobilize investment in clean sectors. There have been positive experiences in international forums such as P4G, as well as initiatives like the Race to Zero initiative. We hope that through these initiatives and taking the necessary decisions in relevant meetings like the Biodiversity COP15 and the pre-COP that will be hosted by Colombia, as well as in climate change COP26, we can foster public-private partnerships to work together for climate, nature, and people. The excellent foundation set by Denmark from inaugural Copenhagen Summit in 2018 and 2021 Seoul Summit outcomes are real examples of the real impact that P4G has. On 2023, Colombia, as a part of the Troika, will gather heads of state and government, leaders of international organizations, businesses, academia, and the civil society at the third Global P4G Summit. We look forward to an impactful summit in 2023 that develops and showcases partnerships and coalition for sustainable growth. Colombia can offer not only Colombia's unique destiny, it's Latin American destiny, and Colombia represents the second biodiversity country in the world. With the knowledge, with the experience, and the human talent, we believe we can offer a good scenario in 2 years. Thank you.
All right, Ambassador Thomas Anker Christensen, Climate Ambassador of Denmark, Ambassador Juan Carlos Kaiser Rosero of Colombia, and Professor Chung So-young of Korea University. Thank you all three gentlemen for a productive discussion tonight. We appreciate it very much, and best of luck to you, Bogota, Colombia. And that is a wrap of Arirang News special live coverage of the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. Thank you all for staying with us all throughout the night. I'm Moon Ga-young Jennifer. Wherever you are in the world, stay safe and stay strong. We'll get through this. Take care.